Picking up on what several people said, I'm going to throw out a question. Anyone can go for it. We talk about technology and how it drew people in. What does a movement like this do for people who don't have access to technology, whose access is the public library perhaps in their town for a limited period of time? How do we get them involved if they can't use the technology that was so prevalent in this campaign? Who wants to try?
I think I can start with that. I think that one answer to that is that the technology tools are powerful, not just for the people who have access to them directly, but for all the people who they allow people to reach out to kind of first and second degree networks that can form around these technologies.
Explain that a little bit more.
Sure. So my guess is that there are most people in this room, a lot of people in this room, who called other people to ask them if they could volunteer, to ask them if they could phone bank, to invite them to local house parties. That use of technologies to not only, so if you have access to technology, if you can go online, if you can start the My Barack Obama campaign account and download Call This, if you're able to do that, that puts you in the position to bring in people who may not have access to those tools, to bring in people who may not be able to do that. And so, these tools really allow each of us to be leaders, each of us to reach out beyond just the internet, beyond just the online, into our social networks, into our offline networks, into our communities, and pull those people into the movement, into the campaign for change. So that's my kind of first response there. My second response is I think that people have access to technology to varying degrees, and they have access to different kinds of technologies. So they have access to, a lot of people have access to broadband, high-speed video download, email all the time technology. A lot of people have access to Blackberries. But many more, for example, have access to cell phones with text messages. And these can be very powerful tools as well. And so, one important thing is to think big, think beyond the limits of how technology has been used in the standard applications, and think about how do the people who are in your community, who are in your network, how do they use technology, and how can you reach out to them? Maybe there are tools that haven't been built yet. Maybe there are tools that work better for your context, and that's the wisdom that we can each bring to this movement. Our own perspectives, our own understandings of how we can best reach out to our networks, our communities, and activate people and bring them in.
Can I comment on that?
Certainly.
Yeah, I think in a way the genius of the Obama campaign was the integration of organizing and of online and offline. And I mean, I think it's very important to distinguish between carpenters and tools. It takes a carpenter to imagine a house, to envision it, to know how to use tools to build it. The best tools in the world don't build a house by themselves. And I think that in recognizing the critical need to invest in leadership development and training and on the ground organizing, the campaign then equipped people in such a way that they could make use of tools. One thing we also learned from the Dean campaign, one innovation was certainly use of the internet for fundraising. However, using the internet for organizing was a pretty big flop in the Dean campaign. One of the things we learned from Meetup, for example, was that while they were very successful in bringing people to meet one another, they didn't know what to do once they did that. And so the mortality rate of these groups was enormous because there was no training in leadership. This sort of myth of self-organization that just, people, they'll just know how to do it. Well, it doesn't work like that, folks. It's a serious, working together in groups with other people effectively is serious work. And it takes real understanding in how to do it and how to be good at it. For years, our civic associations trained people in that. That sort of collapsed about 40 years ago. That's one reason why what the campaign offered was like water on a dry plain. Because people were hungry for tools on how to work with one another and how to engage with one another successfully. So I just want to try to suggest a little more balance there. That I think it was the tension often between the organizers and the new media people that was the source of great creativity, because of the pushes and pulls in the different directions. So one other just thing, I think one of the big surprises was the power of YouTube. And in the campaign, the use of YouTube was phenomenal. And like Sam Graham-Felsen, who's running the blogger in chief, the way they use YouTube to enable people to tell their stories, to communicate the emotional, moral content of what was going on, not simply the information about the facts about what was going on, was extraordinary. And I think that tool has just begun to realize its potential.
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to add a couple of things. One of them is like, we shouldn't see technology as an absolute, and we shouldn't sort of like never replace that with the face-to-face contact. I think ultimately that's what is going to make a big difference in how we do things. Neighbor to neighbor through the election, we still had to go door to door. We still had to sort of like hand out flyers. When we do our blogging, we still had to bring people to speak with their representatives. So we still have to do that, and I think they should be complementary. And the other thing I wanted to say that, and not forget and be mindful about it, that many low-income communities and people of color, there is a big technology gap that we need to sort of be mindful about it also.